And we're back. I told you it was going to be quick. See? Nice quick break. Speaking of ads, time to play AdBit Lottery. No, we're back. Mambo, we're back. Wait, well, something disconnected. Uh-oh. Oh, no, that's my Windows during the break, my Windows Defender noise went off to let me know that everything was fine. Yeah, Mech Shadow, we have to do that because I upload these as separate parts on YouTube. But for now, this is welcome to the viewer portion of the show, where the viewer topic portion of the show. So if you guys have anything you want to discuss, we will try and discuss it here without being too long, because I don't have a whole lot of time right now. I actually thought about just having this segment later, but we'll just do it right now. So if you guys have anything you wanted to talk about, like Nintendo's online service, or probably not Steven Universe, Windows Defender. We see you're chatting with some filthy. Suave, I thought you were going to talk about My Little Pony when you said rarity. As a viewer thought, rarity versus pricing of video games. I find rarity versus pricing. I don't know that the problem with pricing video games, it doesn't even have to do with rarity as much anymore, because, well, it does, but it's also quality. I definitely think quality is a part of it. One of the reasons Earthbound, people talk about how Earthbound is so rare, and it's really not. When you go to conventions and stuff like that, I go to YouTube right now and look for Earthbound, and there's 200 copies of Earthbound. I don't find it much in the wild, so there is that understandable rarity. But a lot of the time, there are very terrible games out there that are very rare, but nobody cares about them because they're rare. But then there are games out there that are rare and terrible, and they're going to cost a fortune. It's very strange. Well, stadium event. Okay, so the thing with stadium events is, there are a bunch of stories out there about why stadium events is expensive, and the story that I heard with stadium events, the one that I believe the most was, or the one that seems to, some version of it seems to permeate the most, is that the game was released, but then picked up by Nintendo, so they pulled the copies that were called stadium events, and then rebranded it World Class Track Meet. So some copies of stadium events managed to get out there. That's the version of the story I heard. One thing that I definitely think raises the price of video games, of vintage retro video games, if there's a story behind it. I think that's one of the, because once you put a story behind it, there's almost a cultural, it feels like a cultural significance to it. Atari 5200 games saw a little bit of a spike when the movie Cloak and Dagger came out, because the secrets in the movie were kept in an Atari 5200 cartridge. They showed the cartridge whenever they possibly could. Somebody told me before that Adventure for the Atari 2600 went up in price because it was featured on a show or something. And once that happened, it went up in price. So when there's a story behind it, I think that usually raises some sort of price, even if the game is good or bad. And I just find that interesting. I think that more than anything, cultural significance has an impact on some games. When it comes to Nintendo games, Mario Brothers 3 is an amazing game, but there's the millions of copies out there of it. But yet, when you go find it anywhere, I've been to places that have a row of Mario 3, and they sell them all for $20. They're obviously not rare. You've got 20 of them in the box, but they sell them for $20 a piece because Mario 3 has such a big history. Whether it was just a good game, whether you remember it from your childhood, whether you saw it in the movie The Wizard, which was like a commercial for Mario 3, there's a cultural significance to it, or people feel like there's a cultural significance to it, so that raises the price. Contra, I see Contra all the time, but people still sell it for $30 and $40 because everybody remembers Contra. I mean, it's a good game, but it is kind of common. Condition also factors in along with the quality of the game. Yeah, see, Elements not always the quality of the game, because Cheetah Men 2 is a terrible game that isn't even complete, and it's worth hundreds of dollars. Game genre saturation, like there's a lot of one type coming out. I think that I don't know that there's a lot of one type coming out. I think that what happens, Mecha Shadow, is that when one kind becomes it enters the public eye more, they start making a bunch of them. I think there's too many first-person shooters out there, but I noticed that slowed down. Now the public eye, especially because of indie games, the public eye is turned towards games like platformers. So we're seeing a lot of platformers come out, but with the indie game, you vary greatly in quality. I don't feel like I've seen too much saturation of any one particular genre. What I see is you'll see a bunch of games and then you'll stop seeing them. I like that though, because I like when a bunch of RPGs come out and then for years a bunch of RPGs don't come out. It gives me a chance to catch up on them if I even have time to play them, which I don't. Not even much of it. Yeah, Stadium event's not even much of a tech demo. Isn't the Jetsons also expensive despite? Suave, the Jetsons. Now the Jetsons is a. I don't know that that's common. I have seen 2 copies of the Jetsons. One decades ago that I bought at a flea market, and I saw one at Too Many Games not last year, the year before. I don't see that game that much. I actually don't. The Jetsons game for the NES is a game that I honestly don't see that much. So I kind of understand the rarity of it. I've played it. It's an okay game, but it definitely has to do more with the rarity. But that price is going down. But NES prices are dropping in general. But that's a whole different topic. Yeah, you aren't buying. Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah, same with Antique. You aren't buying just a game. You're buying a story. Your experiment. Like some people will pay thousands for the You're talking about the Caltron, or is it Kilton? Because I know there's for US NES there's a Caltron 6-in-1. Is indies a genre though? Indies isn't a genre so much as it is a development style. It's a tier of development. When you say indie, you usually expect lower production values. Often you expect some more simple gameplay, less things like less cutscene. Well, that all goes into lower production values. But since indie games are becoming so popular, what you're seeing is, when I say that you're seeing indie games and platformers in the indie game market, you're seeing a huge influx of platformers, and that's what's popular right now. You know what I mean? And then eventually that's going to switch. You're going to see, I believe one day you'll see a massive influx of indie style first person shooters. You know, that may happen. Fooling their money or soon pardon. They should have similar production value. I have this rare game called Mario Duck Hunt. Want to buy it for $199? Huh? That's like That's like $100 a game. They do, but genres are like puzzle sim. Yeah. Mecha Shadow. Yeah, genres are more like that. Genres are more like that kind of breakdown. But indie as opposed to. See, maybe that's a discussion one day, because what is there? Because it's not just indie and AAA. There are, I guess you would call them single and double A games, where they are not, the production values aren't as high. Maybe there needs to be a way to, or maybe people would like for there to be a way to catalog that stuff. But then that goes into a situation of, the more you catalog something, the more people will avoid. People already avoid indie games or AAA games just because they're indie games or AAA games. The more you break it down, the more it's going to give people a listing for them to avoid. Pawn Stars, I'll give you $1. Sell Command for the Atari 600 for 2600 for peanuts. Still, yeah, and still have enough to build a mansion out of them afterwards. They tie their nostalgia. Yeah, De Niro, that's what they do. They tie their nostalgia to a price, whether they're selling or buying. People do it for buying too. People will pay more money because they remember this thing from their childhood. What is your opinion on the current state of the indie game industry? Mecha Shadow, I could honestly say I don't know enough about what goes on in the indie game industry in order to comment on it much. I will say that it is nice to see them getting high amounts of recognition. I don't think that the AAA market is in danger from the indie game market. Those middle ground markets, I do think, are in danger. You know, there used to be a point where you go and you buy a PlayStation game, and there were the main PlayStation games, and then there was the $20 games that came out just because. That market is in danger, because now you can take your $20 and you can say, you know, you have your $60 games that are worth $60. You have your the kind of okay games that are maybe worth the $30. Or you've got indie games. If you pay $30 for an indie game, you're usually going to get an amazing game. You know, well, that's unfair to tie it directly to the price. But there's a good chance that for $30 you can either get one amazing game or several games. So it's that middle ground, that mid-tier, billing themselves a mid-tier game. Yeah, mid-tier games. It's the mid-tier games, the AA games, if you want to say. They're the ones in danger from the indie market, because the indie market now, instead of taking my chance on this $30 game, $40 game from the store, or worse, a $60 game that I'm not entirely sure of, I can take that money and buy multiple indie games with amazing followings and feel like I'm getting my money's worth out of those games. If I pay $10 for an indie game that lasts 10 hours and the gameplay is fun and it looks kind of cool, I usually feel like it's worth it. If I do that for 4 different games, I spent $30 or $40 and I got $30 and $40 worth of good games. If I go to the store and I pay $40 for a game and it turns out to just kind of be okay, it's worsened by the fact that I spent $40 on that game. You know, that's where I get into the situation where I would rather, I would look at a game, and I've always said that if I ever reviewed games, if I ever did anything like that, like a ranking system, my ranking system would be how much would I have paid for this? How much do I feel like I should have paid for this game? Because we've all paid the $60 games. We all played the $60 games that we thought this game probably would have been better if I paid $20 or $30 for it. But the fact that I paid $60 for it, it's kind of annoying. And then we've all played the games that, and one of my favorite examples is Blaster Master, where if I paid $10 for that game. If I would have paid $20 for that game, I would have been totally fine with it, because I would have believed that I got my money's worth. Absolutely. Caltron, the scene is kind of exploding out of control. The AAA industry is way smaller than it used to be. Yeah, because you know why, Mambo? Because those AAA games, those AA games, I mean, those smaller companies that don't have the high production values as the AAA companies, they can easily just go indie. They can reduce the size of their company to an indie style market and get more out of their production values. Indie titles were always about the diamond in the rough for me. Pony Island, Super Meat Boy, Undertale. Well, they're not diamonds in the rough anymore. So it's a go between. I do love the $20 market and the mid-tier games. Yeah, it depends. Elements. Sometimes you get nice ones, but sometimes you get sort of okay ones. You know, a lot of that is changing because we have the internet right now. We can go online and we can watch Let's Plays and we can watch people commenting on the games. You know, it was one thing to watch a trailer for a game or to hear someone talking about a game or, to look at the pictures on the box or in a magazine or something, like, especially the old days when you had all you had were magazines and everything, and that's what you had to go on. But now you can watch the graphics, you can watch the gameplay, you can hear somebody talk about the gameplay, and you can make a much more informed decision. You know, it's not just, well, this game looks kind of cool. You could easily say, this game looks kind of cool, but it kind of plays terrible. You know, I don't like some of these features, or I don't like that. That's different. So it makes those mid-tier, and that's the problem with those mid-tier games that used to be in the stores, that you felt like the quality, you were taking a much bigger risk on quality buying those games. You don't have to anymore. You know, combine that with the fact that you could take a risk on those, or you could buy an indie game, which often, I mean, there are so many indie games out there. There's such a backlog of games. I still haven't picked up Blossom Tales. I haven't picked, later Suave. I haven't picked up Blossom Tales. I haven't picked up Golf Story because I think that there's a physical release coming out for that. You know, there's so many good games out there and they're coming out so fast. You don't need to take a risk anymore. It's easy to fill your backlog with games that have extremely positive reviews. I do have a fondness for a little bit of jankiness. It's sort of hit or miss elements, and Mendez says of jankiness can be overlooked. It's sort of hit or miss. If that's sort of the point of the game, that's okay. But I don't know. I need my, if anything else, I need my controls in my game to be rock solid. That's the one thing that I need more than anything. Is I need, when I tell my character to go left, I want him to go left, and that's it. The jankiness is funny, but I don't want it. You know what I mean? I never heard of Blossom Tales. Blossom Tales is a Zelda style overhead indie game, and it looks amazing. And every time I hear somebody talk about it, I hear them say that it's amazing, or that it's at least very much worth the money that you spend. Take No More Heroes. Some of my favorite games are probably A or AA. Red Star, Silent Bomber, the bulk of shmup. Yeah, shmups unfortunately get regulated right down to AA. Or single A. Reminds me of Doki Doki Literature Club, got ported to the 3DS as a homebrew game. I got Golf Story on sale. I was holding out hope for physical sale. I do think there is a physical copy of Golf Story coming out. All the signs point to it. Apparently they just the ESRB just reevaluated the game, which normally only happens when it's going to get a physical release. Is what I hear. I show up for hurdy-gurdy. All right, so unfortunately, I am going to have to stop it now. I did get a message here. So I am going to stop it now. Was that they mentioned something about a physical release again? Yeah. And you bought it in February. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to stop it. I'm going to have to cut it short today. I do have something that I have to take care of. So before we go, thank you guys so much for stopping in. Thank you for discussing from the first part of the show and this part of the show. I do hate that I'm cutting it so short. So since I'm cutting it so short, maybe I'll stream later. We don't know. But yeah, but thank you guys so much. If you are watching this here on Twitch right now, or if you're watching a VOD, be sure to check down below and follow if you want. Also check YouTube link. Follow me on YouTube and Twitter. I still feel dirty doing that stuff. Oh, Splatcat is hosting in there, and we're about to end. So yeah, so check that stuff out. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to head over to Twitch and follow me on Twitch, because I do more stuff on Twitch than I do on YouTube. That should be clear. If you look at my upload history on YouTube, that should be clear that I do much more on Twitch. So thank you guys so much for stopping in. Have an amazing weekend. I hope you guys hey, I like that. You got the little schedule there. I hope you guys have a good weekend. I will see you on sometime on Splatfest this week. This particular weekend is Splatfest right now. Yeah, there you go, Team Donnie, which is who I picked. I picked Donatello. Michelangelo from the Ninja Turtles is a party dude, and I hate going to parties. So Donatello it is. But I will talk to you guys later. Have an amazing weekend, and I will. Let me get this ready. And there we go. I will see you probably over the weekend. If not, I'll see you Monday.